Hi there, and welcome to this introductory video to ProspectorPlanner. ProspectorPlanner is a module from 3GIS that allows you to create the most cost-effective routes from certain demand points back to your fiber network. We can use this to very quickly create quotations on how much it would cost to connect potential new businesses wanting our services. We can also use it to create high-level designs for future rollouts and plans to expand our network. Now, the way that we use ProspectorPlanner is first we have to give it a project name. In this instance, I'm just going to give it video. The first thing we then want to do is we want to select our demand points. Now, I'm going to introduce you to another little bit of functionality that we have with 3GIS Web, and that is the ability to be able to drag and drop certain data sets that have some sort of geocoding within them, such as X and a Y or an address, straight into the map. Here you can see I dragged and dropped a CSV file on, which has some coordinates in it, and I'm now seeing those being displayed as pins on the map. Now these, in this instance, represent potential businesses that want to join onto our network to get our services. Now, back to ProspectorPlanner. Now that I have my set of demand points that I've taken from another system and dragged and dropped them into our network, I can choose them in ProspectorPlanner. I'm going to choose a CSV file. I'm then going to select a name field. This helps me distinguish between the routes when we're looking at the results later on. I'm just going to click the upload button, as everything that you do in ProspectorPlanner needs to occur on the actual database itself. Then I'm going to select, okay, I have my demand points, but how am I going to connect them back to my network? I might want to connect them back to the nearest fiber equipment, the nearest structure, the nearest fiber cable, or actually any of the components that exist within my network. Now in this instance, I'm actually going to go back to the nearest splice closure where I know I have an access point and an easy way to connect a new fiber cable back onto my network by splicing it onto another cable. The next option is I'm going to be able to select certain things like, okay, how far beyond this route do I want to look through a buffer distance? This is going to become clear later, but we can do things like search around this potential route for other potential businesses. So how far do I want to look for that? Also, I'm never going to go further than 5 miles or 5 kilometers when calculating this route, as the attenuation loss would just be too great, and I would never do that. We also have some additional options such as generate home run routes. This is going to make the demand points look at one another and take each other into consideration during the routing process. This is because, as I mentioned at the start, this tool is designed to make the most cost-efficient route to all of the demand points. So if 4 of them are located nearby to one another, then you might want to reroute them all onto the same path back to the nearest splice closure. This means less digging and therefore less cost. The next tool that I'm going to show is called barriers. Now this it does exactly what it says on the tin. It's going to allow me to create barriers such as areas, military bases for example, lines, so roads that I shouldn't go through, and also points, so say a point on the network which you would never want to pass. This is going to allow me to input barriers and say do not route this way. For example, I might not want to route through downtown Nashville as we're looking at here, because that is going to be, the costs are going to be too great to do that. I then, once I have all my parameters set up, click the Run Routes button in the Results tab. Now what this is going to do, this is going to go off and it's going to query a routing layer that has got enough information in it to create the most low cost and most efficient route from those demand points back to the network. Now I'm just going to click refresh and we'll start to see those routes being returned. And if I click on one of these, so we can see here that route name that I was talking about earlier, from 5 points to the nearest splice closure, if I click in, refresh, we'll see more and more come back through. Here we can see the best route from the Best Western to the nearest splice closure. And here we can see Hudson Technologies back to the nearest splice closure. And one more refresh and we should see all 9 of those routes being performed. just going to zoom over it and take a closer look at this Centennial Medical Center, as it's a longer route, so we can take a little bit of a look at it. Now, additionally to just actually showing you where that route is on the map, the most efficient route, we're also going to return some useful information for me. It's going to say how long that segment length is, 6.662 miles this is? No, 6,662 feet it is. It's going to say how many businesses it passed, which is really useful. It's also going to say the segment cost, $333,702 US. And actually, if I want more information on this route, what I can do is I can double click on it, and it's going to pull out all of that information into a separate routes details tab. Now, why I might want to do this is because we can actually then select those businesses tab and start to see, okay, here are some of the actual businesses that I'm passing. Not just the count, not just 8, but where we have records for these, we can say that we're passing Spotty Merle, NV Music Row, and Morton and Bergman, which I believe is another music company here. This, if we want to, we can split out to an CSV file. We can export that, so that can be provided back to the sales team who might want to approach those businesses and say, we're putting in a new route at this location. Would you be interested in taking on our services? Now, once this tool has actually created some routes for us, so for example, the Centennial Medical Center, the next thing we might want to do is we might want to commit that route to our data set so that we can do further analysis on it, etc. So the way that I can do that is I can click Commit Routes, and that is going to push all of those routes to a data set that we have in our table of contents called Potential Routes. I'm just going to switch those on and make them selectable. And when I get rid of Prospector Planner, we'll now see these green lines representing the potential routes that Prospector has made for us. This allows us to take advantage of some of the other functionality that we have within 3GIS Web. For example, if I wanted to actually walk this route, so to say, and inspect it in greater detail, I might be able to use something like Google Street View, for example. And what I can do in 3GIS Web is I can actually just get rid of this map here, snap it to the side, and then do something that we call linking the map views. So I can grab the street view, I can link it to my map, and then Google Street View will actually be showing me what we are seeing at this point on the map. So here, for example, I've zoomed it to a location at a manhole. This is something that we might want to take into consideration during this routing to get access to this potential route. And here I can actually take a look at it and see that it's a manhole that's easily accessible. There's no parking on top of it. It's something that we might want to use. And then I can also go further down here and actually drive this route itself. And as I go down Google Street View, we'll see the map on the left being updated. So I can virtually walk this route and double check that it's something that I might want to actually use. Now, something that we mentioned earlier was the ability to actually go past other businesses as well and make the most value out of these potential routes. So we actually have a data set called commercial. And this is actually what the tool earlier was looking at when we're pulling back all the businesses that it might go past. I also have access through the underlying base map data to other information. So there is another surgery up here, for example. So I might want to take into consideration all of that information to reroute my potential route to, say, for example, I'm just going to change the vertexes of this route. And I'm going to say, okay, actually I want to route this past this additional medical center. I'm going to change the route of that using all of the information that I have access to here. Using things like Google Street View, the additional customers that we might pass, these blue flags, and also the base map data itself, we can change these potential routes to be the most cost efficient and also provide us with the most potential for growth. So that is a very high level introduction into something that you can do with Prospector Planner. I hope that you enjoyed it. Okay, bye.